of it in old New York.
Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with New York Yankees special assistant and consultant, columnist, New York Times bestselling author, Emmy Award-winning producer, and SAG member Ray Negrón. His amazing journey began 50 years ago when, at 17 years of age, he was caught spraying graffiti on the wall at Yankee Stadium by New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner. As fate would have it, Steinbrenner decided against putting Ray in jail and instead offered him a second chance, making him the batboy for the greatest franchise in sports history. Ray was propelled into a dream job, sharing the dugout with the Bronx Zoo team of the 70s. He became a positive influence in the fiery clubhouse that included manager Billy Martin, superstar Reggie Jackson, and the legendary Thurman Munson. And for the next 37 years, Steinbrenner and Ray built a special relationship until Steinbrenner's passing in 2010. Along the way, he was instrumental in giving Doc Gooden a second chance in life in the Yankees organization, along with galvanizing a very strong friendship with him. We get into how it all started and took hold for Ray, his Doc beginnings, and why Dwight Gooden has rightfully earned a spot in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. We get into all of this and so much more. Enjoy this interview. Ray, hey man, thank you for taking a minute out today to talk about your life a little bit and to talk about Doc Gooden. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
So I want to begin, before we get into Doc Gooden and his legacy and how you met, I want to begin with your story, which is a wonderful story from the beginning of meeting George Steinbrenner and getting into the New York Yankees organization. Take me back to those beginnings. How did you meet George? How did you get involved with the Yankees?
1973, I was outside Yankee Stadium. Did you ever see the movie The Pride of the Yankees?
Yes.
Do you remember the last scene where, before the speech, you see Lou Gehrig getting out of a cab with his wife outside gate 4? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and so when I saw that, and like all the fans were out there, and they said, "Look, it's Lou Gehrig," and then you see him talking to the little boy, and after that, I used to hang out gate 4 all the time because I realized that's where the players are going to be. And so even though I couldn't go, I couldn't afford to go to the games at that time, I was able to at least hang out outside there and see the players come in and see the players go out. And it was, it was very mystical to see that these guys were real. That's how I started going to the stadium. And then the next thing was one day one of the guys started doing graffiti on one of the walls, and they gave me the can and I started doing it. The next thing you know, a car drives on the sidewalk, 2 guys jump out. I'm the one that's caught. I'm put in a holding cell. And then because the one guy said to the other guy, "This is where he belongs. There is nothing you can do for these people." And when he said that, the other guy said, "Give me the kid." And next thing you know, they're taking me to the Yankee locker room. And that night, that man made me the bat boy for the Yankees. And that man was George Steinbrenner.
So how did it evolve from there? How did it evolve from the bat boy to where you're at today in the organization?
George just took a liking to me, and George just became my protector. I was the first person of color to work for the team at that time. And so naturally, I went through some stumbling blocks, as you can imagine. And George was always there to protect me, and Billy Martin protected me, and Thurman Munson protected me. And then later on, Reggie Jackson came in and became a big brother. And that's how my whole life has been throughout the years, 53 years.
So what is it that George saw? What do you think George saw when he met you? What do you think the spark was? Did he see who you really were? Did he figure out who you were and that just made you come alive?
He saw a lost soul. Because as time would progress, he would find out about my family. One time he was driving me home, and as we were driving home through the Bronx, at the time they used to say the Bronx was burning. And not really thinking, he said, Jesus, imagine to have to come home to this every day. And I said, boss, I do come home to this every day. And that was like a real wake up call for him. And in essence, at that point, there was nothing that he wouldn't do for me. Like sadly, one time I said one of my siblings is having a lot of issues. And he says, go home and tomorrow bring him here and we'll put him to work. And by the time I had gotten home, my sibling had gotten shot and killed.
Wow.
And that was something that stayed with him and it bothered him. And so he was like, again, he was protective of me. He didn't like to see people talk down to me and stuff like that. And, I remember one time somebody said something stupid thinking that he was being funny to the boss. And the boss just like really verbally hammered him.
So if that day didn't happen, the spray paint, meeting George, getting involved, being a bat boy, what do you think would have happened? Do you ever think what would have happened in your life if that moment didn't take place?
I wouldn't be alive today.
Yeah,
And the reason I say that is because in my house there were 7 boys. I'm the only one that's alive. And the reason being, because people always ask you that question, is because I had somewhere to go.
yeah,
And when you don't have somewhere to go in life, what happens? Trouble finds you, especially in the Bronx.
yeah. So we're on the heels of the Hall of Fame weekend. We connected initially last year in regards to Dwight Gooden. I'd written a letter to the Historical Overview Committee for consideration to get Doc in the Hall of Fame. And you've had a long relationship with Doc. How did it begin? How did you meet Doc? How did this friendship begin?
There was a writer by the name of Bob Clappish. You know the name?
Yes, absolutely.
Big time writer in New York. And he called me one day and he's the one that said, do you think you want to help Dwight Gooden? Because he knew that I had experiences, family, etc., with the whole drug culture. So I was very familiar with the whole drug culture. And I talked to George Steinbrenner about it. And he said, give it a shot. And so then I told Bob, and Bob took me to meet Dwight Gooden. And the funny thing was that night when we went to meet Dwight Gooden at his block, um, all of a sudden, as we drove into the block, we were surrounded by people holding guns right to our heads because that day somebody had hurt Dwight Gooden's sister in some way. And so Dwight came running out the whole stop, stop, stop. And and that was our first initial meeting.
Wow.
And from there he took us in his house and we talked. We talked at length, and then one thing led to another. And I set up a program for him to follow, and he followed it pretty much to the max. And like I found a sponsor for him. I set up where we can go to for him to have his NA and AA meetings, and then I also got like uh, some people, some college guys to to hit against him and to catch him and all that kind of stuff. So we set up a whole program. I even set up a radio show for him called House Calls with Doc, so that like in the evening he had a purpose. And that the show was an interview show. He was the host and I was the producer, and he did great. And I got to commend the radio station there. It was a major radio station in Tampa, and it worked out, and we had all the best guests in sports because who wouldn't want to be interviewed by Dwight Gooden?
Yeah, yeah. What was it that endeared you to Doc? As far as, he was on the plan, you were giving him another chance, but you've had this friendship for years. What has endeared you about him Not only the beginning, but even through your friendship up to now.
Even even during, like, when we were rehabbing that year, that first year, we went through a lot of stuff. Like his initial sponsor was a guy named Vincent Kenyon, and Vincent was his initial sponsor, who found us the new Freedom House, the drug rehab center where Dwight was going to. And in the process, I mean, the program says one day at a time, and because sponsors are addicts also, and they can fall at any time. And at one point, Vincent relapsed on us, and he was being held by the drug dealers because he went to buy the drugs without money. And next thing you know, we're getting the call. I got the call that they were gonna kill Vincent if he didn't get the money and this and that. And like a superhero, when I told Dwight, man, he just like we jumped in the car and we went to a crack house and we got Vincent.
So how long have you known Doc?
Well, we have been personal friends since '95.
I'm curious about is that he has completely turned his life around. At this point right now, he's doing a lot of charitable causes. He's out in the public.
He
He
he he's always done that.
Yeah, right.
Dwight's always given of himself. Dwight's given, like, he'll give you his last quarter. Okay, that's just the way he is. So that's nothing new in the life of him, being a wonderful person who is always helping people. Has nothing to do with his drug recovery or anything like that, because that's just a person. That's why you love Dwight. That's why everybody loves Dwight. And that's a sickness that can help the sickness. Remember that it's a disease.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I mean, this thing you talking to me today is, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely, he belongs in the Hall of Fame for what he accomplished, for what he did, for how he got into the game, and he was like this incredible mystical figure who, like, at 19, was doing what he did. I mean, we're not going to see that again.
No,
We're never going to see that again.
never.
And then he's a three-time world champion, and he pitched that no hitter when everybody was telling George Steinbrenner he's done, he can't play anymore, he can't throw anymore, and he pitches that no hitter and wins 11 games that year, and the Yankees become world champions that year. Come on, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean 186 wins, the records that he's accomplished, and I think that's the reason why I'm going to continue to push for this as hard as I can, because I believe that as much as our society likes to celebrate this Me Too movement and people get torn down, I feel like the opposite is true of Doc. I think he's done a lot of work. He's been a stand-up guy, and I think there needs to be a level of forgiveness. I think if we're going to truly be an evolved society, we need to look at the fact that what he did had nothing to do with the playing field. He didn't do this to baseball. Everything he did on that
I
field,
agree. I
right?
agree 1,000%. And it's you got child molesters and murderers in the Hall of Fame. Okay, you
Yeah,
understand?
yeah,
You have some real creeps in there. You have a lot of wonderful people. And Beltran getting in yesterday was truly wonderful. And but you also have some creeps that are in there that slipped in. And you know what? Like a guy like Ty Cobb, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely, even though he could be a creep. Absolutely, because of what he accomplished on the baseball field.
yeah,
Just like Alex Rodriguez or Barry Bonds, they belong in the Hall of Fame because of what they accomplished and the way the game used Barry Bonds and Mark McGuire that year.
yeah.
Okay, the way the game used them, because they needed to get the popularity back, and they did that. Nobody ever talks about that.
No. No.
Nobody ever talks about that, but that was a mystical year in baseball. That was an incredible year in baseball. To see Sammy Sosa hugging Mark McGwire when McGwire broke the record, even though Sammy was chasing it too. A beautiful moment in baseball.
Yeah.
He belongs in the Hall of Fame too.
So this is my question to you right now. What is it going to take to get Doc in the Hall? I know that they have a process, and right now there's still a chance that he can get in. But what do you think needs to happen for Doc to finally see that day?
When you find out, please let me know, because
Okay.
I don't have an answer to that question. I really don't. If I did, I'm full of shit.
Well,
Okay. But
I will tell you one thing that I've learned in my life. There's something to be said about persistence, and that's the only answer that I have right now. Persistence and getting voices like yours out there that know who
hey,
this man is.
listen, it's just like, why isn't Thurman Munson not in the Hall of Fame?
That's right.
Okay. So, I just don't understand it. I don't know. I can't figure it out. It's just sad, because the only ones that are losing out are the fans,
Yeah.
because these guys promote the game. Who was Dwight Gooden, Daddy? Oh, Dwight Gooden was 19 years old when he pitched for the Mets, and they were world champions, and this and that, and no hit, and this, Cy Young Award, Rookie of the Year. I mean, you go on and on and on and on.
And you're talking about beloved people as well. Like, people love Thurman. People love Doc. I mean, it's one thing that they did what they did on the field, but the amount of emotions, when you hear that name or see it in paper, you immediately have a little bit of a flutter. You
You get
understand what kind of
excited. You're
impact.
happy.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. It's happiness. Absolute happiness.
Hmm.
I'm going to keep this going. I have a letter I'm getting ready to send to the Errors Committee right now. I am not going to stop until Doc gets to Cooperstown. So, Ray, thank you for taking a minute out to
You're
talk
welcome.
about this. I'm going to continue to be persistent. I am eternally grateful that you've taken this moment out today. Thank you
No
so
question.
much. I appreciate
bro.
it. Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.
New York.